Hi, I'm Aniket. I'm working as an integration developer in TGF Software Solutions. Today we are going to discuss about implementing API Autodiscovery in MuleSoft. So let's start. API Autodiscovery. It is a mechanism which is used to establish connection between the API manager and Mule application deployed on runtime engine. API instance ID. It is a unique ID which identifies the API which is imported from the exchange to the API manager. When should we go for auto-discovery? When the specification is built inside the MuleSoft and we want to enforce some policies and services on top of our API, then we should go for auto-discovery. Now let's see the implementation on any point platform, what we need to do. First, we need to design the API. Then once the design part is complete, we need to publish it to the exchange. Now we need to add the API to the API manager. For that, we need to select the gateway. Then we need to select the endpoint. Once it is added, an API instance ID will be generated and the status will become unregistered. So let's move on to the next slide. Implementation on Anypoint Studio. First, we need to create one Mule application. Once it is done, then we'll add the API instance ID in the global elements. Then we'll deploy it to the cloud up. Now we need to specify which environment we want to deploy. So for that, we have environment credentials, which is client ID, client secret. Now let's jump to the Anypoint platform. So first we need to design the specification. So I've already designed the specification here. So we'll go through that. Specification is built on RAML 1.0. I'll give you a brief about the specification. This RAML is built on RAML 1.0. The title is API Autodiscovery. Then we have the documentation. This is a resource slash autodiscovery. For that we are using a get method and it'll return a response of status code as 200 and it'll return body of JSON format. For that I have written one example here. We'll go through the example now. This is an array containing in multiple objects in a JSON format. Once the specification is done, we'll publish it to the exchange. I've already published to the exchange. So I'll click on cancel. Once it is published, we'll go to the exchange. Here we can see API Auto Discovery. Our specification is published to the exchange. Now we'll go to the Anypoint Studio. Now once the specification is published to the exchange, we need to import that specification to the Anypoint Studio. For that we need to create one project. Click on Mule project. Now once the naming is done, we'll scroll down. Here we'll see download RAML from Design Center. We need to click on three dots. I've already configured my Anypoint platform credentials. So here we are getting the API specification, API Auto Discovery. We need to click on OK. Then we need to hit on finish. So I've already created this. So I'll click on cancel. After that, the scaffold will get generated. So now here we have the start logger and the end logger, which determine the starting and the end of the particular flow. So for that I have written here start of the flow, then flow.name as string. Here we have flow reference, which will transfer the control to the particular flow which we are referencing. So for that, we need to select the flow which is configured here. Now we'll right click on it. We'll click on go to the reference flow. Here I'm performing some basic operation. We are fetching the records from the Salesforce custom object, then logging it and transforming it to the JSON format. So I'll show you the configurations here. So for configurations, I've used secure properties and configuration properties. So once the implementation is completely done, we'll go back to the main flow. Then we'll go to the global element. Here we need to add the API Autodiscovery. We need to select the name of the flow. Main flow is there, and this API ID. Now we'll get this API ID from the Anypoint platform. We'll go to the Anypoint platform again. We need to go to the API manager. Now we need to click on Add API. Add an Now we'll select the Mule gateway. Here you can see connect to the existing application, which is basic endpoint for Autodiscovery. We'll click on next. We need to select the API from the exchange, then the API which has been published to the exchange. Then we need to verify asset type, API version, asset version, and click on next. Now these are some fields which are not mandatory, so we'll leave it as empty. Instance label. Next is the upstream URL. This is also not mandatory, so we'll leave it. Now here we can review whatever the configuration we have provided here. So now we'll hit on save, but I've already done it. So once it is done, we'll hit on save. I'll go back to the previous. So once you click on the save, we'll get this kind of interface here. But the API status will be unregistered. It is showing as active because I've linked the API to the Mule application, which is deployed on the runtime. So here you will get the API instance ID. We'll copy this instance ID and we'll go to the Anypoint Studio. We'll paste it here and we'll hit on OK. Now we'll deploy this application to the Cloud Hub. Anypoint platform, deploy to Cloud Hub. Now, when we are deploying to the Cloud Hub, we need to take care of few different things. When we are deploying to the Cloud Hub, we need to specify the environment which we are going to deploy. So for that, we need the environment credentials. We'll go to the Anypoint platform. Here, we'll go to the access management. We'll go to the business group, select the organization. We'll go to the environment section. Now this is the go to the environment section. We'll select on sandbox. We need to copy the client ID, client secret from here, and we'll go back to the Anypoint Studio. Select on text view. Now we need to write Anypoint dot platform dot client underscore ID equal to the value which we copied. Next line, similarly, we need to write the client secret. Like this, once we copy paste the values, then we need to hit on deploy. Once the application is deployed, now we'll hit the request to our API. We got the response. Now we are going to enforce some policies to our API. So for that, we'll go to any point platform again. We need to click on the API. In the left side of the screen, we'll see policies. On the left hand side, we'll see policies. We'll select on policy. Then we need to select add policy. Then we are going to add basic authentication policy. So for basic authentication, we need to provide username and password. We'll click on next. So for now, I'll provide it as username sample user. I'll provide the password as ABCD and will apply. Now you can see basic authentication has been applied. We'll go back to the postman. We'll check. We'll hit the request. Now we got an error, which is registered authentication is set to HTTP basic authentication, but there is no security context on the session. Now we need to go to the authorization. We need to go to the authorization. We need to select basic auth. Here we'll provide the username and password. Now we'll hit the request. We got the response here. Similarly, we can add few more policies as per our requirement. So that's it. Thank you for watching the video.